I need to fast forward the aging process of this piece of wood by roughly 200 years.
If you're looking for a way to make new timber look genuinely aged, something that could pass for an authentic old cottage beam, this video should be really helpful. I'm going to show you how I've taken a perfectly new piece of oak, like this, and turned it into something that looks genuinely centuries old.
Other videos go very hard on mentioning what kind of materials you can use to stain the wood, such as using motor oil, wire wool in vinegar solution to oxidize and it takes the vibrancy of the new wood down, tea, coffee, or shop bought solutions. But, and there's a big but, there is something very important that often goes overlooked in this process. To me, the most important factor, reference material. Make it look convincing, find the real thing, and try to replicate what that looks like. Today I'm doing a faux oak lintel. Now the house it's going in is around 200 years old. They would have used a good quality oak. So therefore that rules out taking huge chunks of wood out with an axe or something when it comes to the process of making this wood look aged. So once you have your timber, look at the wood, assess the structural detail here, find the most interesting part of the grain, and we can work with that to create the effect that we want to. So I need to fast forward this piece of wood by about 150-200 years. And to do that, I'm going to first start by looking at reference material on Google Images, Pinterest, or whatever tickles your fancy, Instagram, or TikTok. After you've done the research, do a very rough sketch of what you want to achieve. The typical common denominator here is that the cracks in the wood generally run the entire length through the central band. So this is what I want to achieve in the final product. Let's have a look at what tools you might need to create this effect. Now, I don't think I'll need half of these, but I'll try and use as many as possible just to demonstrate what they do. I think the best method here is to do the heavy beating first whilst it's in one piece. Second part is to do the carpentry and put it together in place, make sure everything fits. Then third and final adjustment is to stain and do any light touch-ups whilst we're there.
I start by sketching straight onto the timber, using the knots and grain to place my stress marks and cracks. A screwdriver gives me clean, controlled dents, whilst the scaffolding tube adds those big rounded hits that I'll blend in later. I skipped the chain links on this oak. They needed too much force, so instead I break up the sheen with a hammered mesh because all those tiny marks really matter. Then came the main act, tracing everything with an angle grinder, carving out the varied depths and widths. The skill here is knowing when to stop. The Dremel is slow but worth it. Its tiny bits let me refine every groove and fake the cracks so they follow the grain, just like real weathered wood. The wire brush pulls the grain to life, but easy does it or it goes full driftwood. And to finish, a wire brush drill attachment lets me scrape in those subtle twists and warps for a convincingly aged surface.
I'll count that a success because that was the first time I've used that track saw. This is now going to be the L section that will sit on the mantelpiece. I am going to use some doweling in between each of these screws. I think that's going to give it more than enough strength for what I need. I need to draw a line along the back to emulate the thickness of this panel. I will then drill a hole directly in the center here and directly in the center there. So when I piece it together, we have a nice seamless join. Wish me luck. And now, from each marking, we're going to measure back. So this is 2.6, we want 1.3 to find the direct center. 1. Now I don't want to go too deep, so that's the full depth of this. The 1.3. There we are, both sides ready to go. Now once I pull in with the screws, they'll get even tighter. Bigger battery means more power. Yeah. That wasn't supposed to happen. Now I'm going to be sanding this back down again after, but the reason I am quite insistent on getting this glued up is so that I can pull this line back a little bit, just so that my clamp doesn't stick to this. Let's pretend that didn't happen. Moving on, the next task is to make the wood a little less angular on the edges. We don't need it to be perfectly straight. We would like to have these dips and these worny parts. It's always a good idea to draw out where you're going to be cutting. Cut to the cut. Next up, we're going to give all these edges a bit of a tune down.
I bought the angle grinder back out for this as it offers a great way of rounding the edges off to create those realistic worny edges that resemble the organic shape of a tree trunk.
We're getting there. This is really starting to look like something that is a couple hundred years old now, without looking like it drifted down the riverbed. And if you look on the underside, it'll look like it's all joined together. Right, the next step in this is sanding it back, ready to take the wood dye. So just to sand it down a little bit more, we're just using an orbital sanding piece on a soft pad, just so that it can rock around freely without causing any gouges in the wood. What I'm trying to do here is just try and take away the jagged edges of each of these gouges from the wood, because it does look like someone's dragged the nail across or used a grinder, which is exactly what we've done. So by doing this, it just feathers the edge a little bit, just to be a bit more precise. Right, I'm not going to push that anymore, so what I'm going to do now is just give it a dusting down before we apply the wood dye, and because I never get to use it, air compressor. Right, let's skip to the good bit. Let's get a bit of this on and see what it looks like. I hope it looks good. A normal painting brush, and then we're going to rub it on with this. There we go. That's what I was hoping for. Remember to wear some gloves when you're doing this, because this stuff will stain your skin for a while. And of course, on top of that, you're going to need to turn this around in a moment or two, so you're going to get dirty hands. This is why I wanted to use the darker solution, so you can see in between all these gaps where it was kind of burnt from the grinder and the Dremel. This darker sort of finish kind of disguises and makes those cracks look a bit more realistic. I'm pretty convinced. I'm convinced. If you're not, I'm sure you're going to tell me. Now I'm probably just going to do the one run on this. So I just really want to make sure I've worked it into all of those little notches, just so that I don't have to go over this again, because I don't want it to be any darker than it is currently. And that test section I did proves that it doesn't really dull down, so just make sure you work it in across the whole length. Brush strokes aren't really a problem with this stuff, but you just don't want to miss anything and then have any darker patches later on. So make sure you spread it all out. But I just want to fly across here to show you what it looks like in more detail. And you can see all the worny edges. And if this is a colour that you like, this is the product we've used. It's not sponsored or anything, just B&Q product. But this is what it looks like when applied to oak, and I think it looks fantastic. You've made it this far, and the next shot is time to reveal. And in real time, that will probably be in a month's time. So I hope you like it.
I'm so pleased with how this turned out, and it really adds to the character we needed to match our 150-year-old house. If I can do this, then you can too. If you enjoyed this video and want to follow along as we make our way through this renovation project, just click the subscribe button and join us as we capture what happened when we watched far too many DIY programs and ended up in a series of our very own.